Welcome back here with Market Pulse. Now, as Indian companies grapple with high interest rates, a significant order by the Income Tax Tribunal brings a lot of relief. Now, the ITAT, as it's called, has held that the International Interest Rate Standard, which is a LIBOR or the London Interbank borrowing rate, should be used to deduct arm's length pricing when it comes to transfer pricing adjustments for advance loans made by Indian company to their subsidiaries. Avantika joins in with more details. Avantika.
Well, this is an issue that has faced a lot of litigation in the past too, but in this order pertaining to an Indian company called Cotton Naturals, the Delhi ITAT has ruled that domestic lending rates cannot be applicable on advance loan made by Indian companies to their foreign subsidiaries, and instead the international interest rate or LIBOR should be used to compute the arm's length pricing. Now let's just understand what the entire issue is in a little detail. The contention here is when an Indian company gives a loan to its subsidiary, what rate of interest should be applied? Should it be the domestic rate or should it be the rate applicable in the foreign country? Now the company's contention was that it provided the loan as a working capital to its subsidiary in the US because the subsidiary did not have adequate credit rating. Now the IT department's contention was that the arm's length pricing should be based on what the Indian company would have earned by giving loans in the Indian market. Now the matter was taken before the DRP, where it was held that since the loan was given at a fixed rate from a shareholders fund, the domestic rate should be applied. And when the matter was eventually taken to the tribunal, the ITAT held that LIBOR rates should be used as a benchmark for such international transactions because an advance loan to a foreign subsidiary is a transaction that is comparable in foreign currency and not in Indian currency. Now this order is a relief on two fronts. One, of course, because it brings great clarity on this very extremely contentious issue, and the second, of course, is that it's a respite for Indian companies and it heavily reduces the tax burden on them. Now also joining us to discuss this entire issue is Mr. Sunil Lala from KPMG. So my first question to you is that, of course, this does come as a great relief for corporates, but what do you think is the underlying contention here? Do you think there's a lack of actual legal clarity?
So there is no dispute between the revenue and the SSC that the method for benchmarking has to be CUP. So let's get one thing clear. The SSC and the revenue both accept that the method for benchmarking is CUP, which is a comparable uncontrolled price. The dispute is as to what is comparable. The revenue says the comparable rate of interest which the Indian SSC must charge the foreign associated enterprise is the rate at which it is paying interest in India. The SSC says no, that's not comparable. What you have to compare is at what rate would my associated enterprise borrow funds outside of India, and that is comparable. I think on this the tribunal has given a big relief to the SSC because usually the Indian rate of borrowing is much higher than the foreign rate of borrowing. So in that sense, if you talk in absolute numbers, it's given huge relief to the SSC. But that apart, I would think even in principle, what is comparable is the rate of interest on foreign currency and not the rate of interest on Indian rupees, because what the Indian company lends to the foreign associated enterprise is the foreign currency, and therefore the rate applicable to foreign currency should be applied. And therefore I think this Delhi tribunal decision, very well written, I think has given a big relief to the SSC, and rightly so.
So my next question to you is, of course, now we do have this order in India, but internationally, how is this issue viewed? How is it in other countries that this whole dispute over domestic interest rates versus international rates is looked at?
So, in fact, if one goes on the internet, one will see several quotes saying that LIBOR is the best, one of the best benchmarks one can have. Somebody may argue that LIBOR is typically London interbank offer rate, and how could it be applicable to US? But when the LIBOR rate is determined, banks from all over the country give their recommendations, banks from all over the globe, and therefore the LIBOR rate is really the best benchmark one can have internationally, and it is followed. However, in some cases, the Euribor, which is the Europe interbank offer rate, and where the lending is in euros, at that point of time, many times the Euribor is taken as the right benchmark. So internationally, both LIBOR and Euribor are accepted as good benchmarks.
Well, Mr. Lala, we do have this order as of now is setting a very strong precedent for other cases. But we do also have a lot of contradicting order from different tribunals as well. So how do you think litigation on this issue will be carried forward in the future?
So, the other tribunal orders which you are referring to, so it started with Siva Industries, wherein they said since the assessee was charging interest rate more than LIBOR, it was at arm's length. However, in Siva Industries, the tribunal noted that the assessee had its own funds and the money which it had lent to its associated enterprise was from his own funds. And the department would litigate and say, no, Siva Industries is not applicable, it will apply only if you have lent from your own funds. After that came Bombay Tribunal in the case of VVF Limited, and Bombay Tribunal said that it really doesn't matter whether you lend from your own funds or borrowed funds. What is important is whether you charge the arm's length interest. Then Bombay Tribunal went a little further and accepted LIBOR. However, in those cases, they would, they would say LIBOR plus an appropriate markup, which should be the arm's length price. So there was the case of Tata Autocomp, Tech Mahindra from Mumbai, and Peru Systems in Delhi, wherein though they accepted LIBOR, they said LIBOR plus a markup should be considered as a benchmark. However, Cotton Naturals has considered all these judgments and have said, LIBOR itself should be the benchmark. So the way I look at it, the only dispute which may arise now is whether it should be LIBOR or LIBOR plus a markup. Now, really this would depend on the facts of the case and the homework the TPO has done. If the TPO has actually taken comparable cases where foreign entities have paid LIBOR plus a markup, then possibly that would be the benchmark. If the TPO has not done that exercise and is merely taken the domestic rate, then one should follow Cotton Naturals and only LIBOR should be taken. So I would think that the dispute really would be whether it is LIBOR and a markup or only LIBOR. I think there is no scope for the revenue to argue now that the domestic rate should be taken for benchmarking.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lala, for that perspective. So yes, Surabhi, a very, very clear precedent being set there and a clear indication coming on what would actually be used as a comparable while computing arm's length in such cases. Back to you.
Avantika, before you go, I know there's another story that you are tracking. Now, it seems this is a ruling that's coming in as a big boost for banks because the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal could hold that banks can claim actually a tax depreciation on sale and lease back of assets. Avantika, explain this to us.